to start your day the right way. It's Marv and Rauh in the morning.
Happy Monday and welcome on into Marv and Rauh in the morning. I'm Christian Rauh, Nick Marovets here, and man, oh man, what a crazy week of sports in general. I mean, I think we're only going to touch football on today's episode, but I mean, everything from college basketball to hockey, NBA, there was some crazy baseball trades. It was insane. And of course, the college football playoffs and NFL playoffs getting very close to being done as well. Playoff picture is getting insane. There is a lot to talk about, and that's what we're going to do on today's Marv and Rauh in the morning. Be sure to hit subscribe wherever you're listening. We are growing, folks, crazy fast, and it is really exciting to see the community that's starting to build here on this show. Nick, insane weekend. I know you were busy. I heard that you're making cookies on one side, trying to watch sports. You had a work-life balance real hard, but you still got into this college football playoffs. Tell me about this Bama-Oklahoma game on Friday.
This game was one of the best kickoffs to college football playoffs we've had. Obviously, last season had a lot of blowouts. We're going to talk about some blowouts at some point here, but this game was real close. This was a real fun one with this Oklahoma team. And obviously, it's a 10-point game, but I really thought Oklahoma had a chance of clawing back in this one.
Yeah, absolutely. This was a crazy game. You're down by 17 points. Oklahoma was up 17-0. And I sent you a message and I said, I'm starting to look like a genius right now, because I went out there and said there was two things that was going to happen in this game, because I thought Oklahoma was winning this football game. I really did. Yeah. I said, John Mateer is going to go off and Ty Simpson's going to be pressured so much that he cannot control himself. That's what I thought was going to happen. In the first quarter, that was the script. That was exactly what happened. I was like, I'm starting to feel real good about my prediction. Maybe the rest of this weekend will go the exact same way. Spoiler alert, it did not go that way the rest of the game. I mean, other than that first quarter, maybe a little bit in that second quarter, Alabama completely took over this game. It was insane. The second part of the first half, the blocked punt, the pick six.
Yes.
All of that stuff I feel like wouldn't have happened. Hear me out here. There was a play where John Mateer he scrambled out this side. He could have rushed for a first down. Instead, he threw it deep to a wide open receiver. I think it was actually a running back, but he was wide open. Probably would have been another touchdown. Probably would have been 24-0 in this case. But instead, the wide receiver dropped the football and they had the punt. That was the punt that got blocked. If it wasn't for that play and that play alone, I think Oklahoma doesn't go on this terrible run in the second half or the end of the first half, and they win this football game. One play, I think, changed all of this. You probably don't get the pick six. You probably don't get the punt block. Although John Mateer didn't play his best, he did not have the support he needed.
No, it felt like in this one, Oklahoma had everything bundled up real tight to start the game. Like everything was packaged really nicely. It was a Christmas present. It looked really nice under the tree. And then all of a sudden, one thing didn't go exactly how it was planned, and it exploded. And there was no regaining control. It was chaos left and right, and Oklahoma just could not find a way to get their footing again. Obviously, Mateer ended up throwing for over 300 yards in this game, but after the first quarter, it felt like it was like getting nowhere. Like there really wasn't a whole lot of production. Obviously, the interception you mentioned, 2 touchdowns for John Mateer. I was actually somehow impressed with how it felt like Oklahoma was doing absolutely nothing after their 17-point lead. Like it just really felt like it was all Alabama's game after that. And there's a lot of talk about, obviously, do they deserve to be in? Do they not? And that's a totally different conversation. But Alabama came out swinging in this one once they were able to get their feet under them. And it was pretty clear that they were going to win this game.
Yeah, just a wild way to start off the college football playoffs. That's the best way that I can say this is on one side, you thought you were completely thinking that Oklahoma was going to win this game in Norman. You thought it might be good for the home teams, right? Something that wasn't the case last year. And then Alabama turns around and runs this. Now, a lot of people were saying that Alabama, on the flip side, didn't deserve to be there because of the blowout in the SEC championship and all the things that happened in that game. Now that they beat this Oklahoma team, do you either think that Bama is more of a contender, or are you on the side of, okay, maybe Oklahoma didn't deserve to be there? Maybe we have too many SEC teams in this thing, and maybe that's a big problem. Maybe there's too many teams in the same conference, and it's getting oversaturated.
Yeah, actually, you mentioned I had a busy weekend. I had a busy weekend talking sports. I had a lot of people, a lot of uncles, grandpas, in-laws, a lot of people to break down what I thought of the college football playoff, what I thought of this Alabama team was a huge point of contention. And I've ended up kind of in the camp of, I don't really care if Alabama won this game by 80 points or by 1 point. I don't know if they necessarily deserved to be there in the first place. But when you ask me, are they a national title contender? At this point, I mean, they kind of have the momentum at the right point of the year, right? Like, I think that they've beat this Oklahoma team, and they're going to have a very tough road getting through Indiana. And I do think that they're a legitimate contender, but Indiana, of course. But you can't count Alabama out. Now that they're in the dance and now that they have some momentum, not only a 10-point win, a 34 points up on the board win, but also a 17-point come from behind win, right? A way to find a way to right the ship on the road in Norman, Oklahoma. Like, yeah, this was an impressive win for Alabama. Whether or not they deserve to be in prior to this, I'm in the camp of probably not. 3 losses is, I feel like we're setting some precedent there. We'll just put it that way. But this was a huge win. Do you think Alabama should have been win or loss regardless, or are you in the camp of like, well, they won, they proved that they are one of the 12 best teams in the country?
That second half team, Alabama deserved to be there, but that first quarter definitely shook me, not gonna lie. Definitely made me kind of contemplate, how is Notre Dame, how is BYU feeling about this college football playoffs after watching that first quarter of Oklahoma and Alabama? And you could say that with some of these other games that we're going to talk about later today. And then it kind of changed. And then Alabama kind of reminded you, like, okay, we're Alabama. We're the team that, should be here. A lot of people expect us to be here. We have the roster to be here, the talent, no doubt. Now, we might have underperformed this season. Lost to Florida State obviously comes to mind. But then, you talk about how amazing Oklahoma's defense is, and they got to Ty Simpson 4 times. That's impressive. But did you expect Alabama to get to John Mateer 5 times? Did you expect 5 sacks from the Alabama defense? No, they stepped up when it was needed to be done. They rushed for over 230 yards on the ground. That's insane against Oklahoma, who is an insane rushing defense. They only had to throw for 232 in Ty Simpson, but he didn't make any mistakes. And in the Oklahoma-Alabama game in the regular season, that was the big thing. Oklahoma won the turnover department, the turnover margin by 3. And this one, they didn't get a single turnover from Bama. Bama was perfect when it comes to the turnover department. And that's biggest reason why they won by 10 points here. They proved me wrong. I thought Oklahoma was winning by 10. I said they win by more than 1 possession. So, at least by 9 points in that case. And they won and it was the flip side. Alabama won by 10 here. Looking at the college football playoff bracket now, Alabama obviously gets the win. They move on to take on Indiana in the Rose Bowl. That game's going to be good. That game's going to be really good. We get 2 shades of red, against Alabama, Oklahoma. We're getting that again in Indiana and Alabama, and it's going to be a fun Rose Bowl. Very excited for that one. Early predictions here. Does Alabama have what it takes to run with Indiana, the team that is the number 1 seed, the overall number 1 seed in the college football playoffs, beat Ohio State, the Big Ten championship game? Kirk Stagnetti, what he's doing is really changing the entire landscape of how you hire college football coaches. Can Bama run with Indiana?
They're going to give them a run, right? I don't know if it's going to be, and we're going to get to this in a second, but I don't know if it's going to be like a James Madison run or if it's going to be a legitimate Bama, come from behind run. I do think Indiana is the best team in the country right now. It's hard to really argue that. Ohio State's going to always be in that conversation. And honestly, people that say Ohio State's better than Indiana, like, hey, I that's a totally respectable opinion. I am going to side with Indiana here. And so Alabama's going to have a tall task, but that doesn't mean they can't do it, right? Like, obviously, this win meant a lot in a lot of different ways. And I think it showed Alabama that they can compete in this tournament, and not necessarily that they needed a reminder, but they have a tall task ahead of them. We'll see just how ready they are to answer the bell, I guess is how I put it.
Look, let's go to the other side of this. Obviously, Texas A&M and Miami, that was a crazy game. But the biggest thing I want to get to is these other 2 games that ended the college football playoffs in the first round. And that was Oregon and James Madison, and Ole Miss and Tulane. It's what we probably expected. It's what probably the majority of folks expected. The G5 didn't show up. And Ole Miss completely blew the doors off Tulane. James Madison, although the points seem higher, Oregon completely owned that game from the jump. There was some garbage time. Really, that's all that really happened in that final score. This is yet again going to bring up that question. Bad weekend for the G5 lover. Bad weekend for that. And to be honest with you, I would love to see the G5 make a lot of sense and show up their thought process. We're going to get to FCS playoffs hopefully today as well. What's your takeaway from both these games of with Tulane just not being able to run with Ole Miss for the second time in a season, and then James Madison just not being able to do what they can on the West Coast?
I mean, it was ugly in both of these games. Both of them, I felt like immediately it was over. And you mentioned garbage time touchdowns for or scores for James Madison. That was kind of like in the second quarter, they were already in garbage time. Like there was a chance that Oregon was going to go up. I want to say it was 51-20 or something like that. And they weren't done with the third quarter. I don't remember how much time was left, but it was too much for that much of a lopsided score. It's hard to really feel like great about the G5s being in after this result. I'm going to be completely honest. Like, and this is the point I was going to make when you started bringing this up. On Friday, we did a show and you were like, who's, rapid fire, who's going to win? And I wanted so badly to pick one of these teams. I really did. And it wasn't
the fan in you wants to. Yeah.
Yeah. And even more so than the fan, like I wanted for the sport, one of these G5 teams to at least compete, right? To at least open the door down the road. It felt, I think a lot of people feel the same way. It feels like these teams somehow told the College Football Playoff Committee, you gave us something nice. Yeah, it's not going to last very long. We're going to destroy it. Have fun never doing this again. And I don't know if that's necessarily the case, but my takeaway from these two games are that in general, the G5 now is just too different than the G5 was, 10 years ago or even, maybe even 5 years ago when Cincinnati was on that run or UCF was undefeated and they could have maybe made some noise. Like all of the good players get poached. All of the good players hit the portal. And I'm not saying that that's their fault. It's actually a very smart move by them. But as far as the sport is concerned, it makes it impossible for those teams to really legitimately be competitive. And I think in the JMU game, we saw a specific, set of plays where it was clear it was a talent gap. It wasn't scheme. And we've talked about that, like with basketball, or at least I have personally, like UMBC. I believe they beat Virginia that year. I've seen a full deep dive on the scheming and the very deliberate decisions that were made to put UMBC in a winning position. I don't know if James Madison could have called an absolutely perfect game, and I don't even think they would have won that. Like Oregon was just too powerful.
See, basketball and football are different. When you want to compare March Madness to the college football playoffs, and I know some media personalities have done that over the last week or so when talking college football playoffs, you can't, because with basketball, you play multiple games a week. You have the opportunity to get on a run. You have the opportunity to get momentum. James Madison didn't play for 2 weeks. Their Sun Belt Championship game, then they sat for 2 weeks. And then all they had to do is thinking about what they have to do when they get down to Oregon, right? One of the most craziest offenses in the land. And we've talked about how great this defense was at James Madison. Oregon ran all over them on the first drive. And you're right.
5 straight touchdowns.
Insane, right? And James Madison's defense was good, with the exception of, well, is it because of their resume? Is it because they haven't played anybody? We found our answer right there. I don't remember talking this bad about the G5 last year when Boise State had. Now, I don't know if that's because Ashton Genty was a Heisman candidate. I don't know because they were an 11-1. They were clearly the best G5 team in the land, or just the fact that there was one G5 team and that was it. It was like, here's your one piece. That's it. The fact that there was 2 in this season, I think proves that will never happen again. G5 team gets 1 and that's it.
I think that, and then also this year, it felt like there were some teams that got left out that it was why was BYU even left out? And Notre Dame fans pretty upset about Notre Dame not being in. Like some big names that were not invited to the dance. Saban said it best. I feel like he didn't say like, oh, we're including these G5 teams. We're leaving out some legit Power 4 teams. Like they just simply aren't able to compete. You took up a spot where BYU could have, who knows? Maybe they take Oregon to the fourth quarter. Maybe it is a close game. These G5 schools, I'm not saying they don't have a spot. Like they shouldn't be allowed to come back. Do not ever try even playing a Power 4 team, because it's not like it doesn't happen. But right. I have a hard time integrating them. Like it just showed that there is a talent gap here, and it's hard to really measure when they've. James Madison's 12-1 before this, so they had incurred a loss. If you've lost with the schedule James Madison had, like, I don't know. It's a tough. Do you have to be perfect from the G5? I just like the questions now are significantly, I think, more important and more abundant than they were prior to this playoff.
Yeah, you can't make the case that they don't belong until you completely dissolve them from the FBS and make them their own league. You can't make the case they don't belong, because if that was the case, then why are you scheduling them in the regular season? Why is Alabama scheduling those teams? Why is Oklahoma, all the other teams in the conference? Why is that happening? And if that's the case, then you obviously have to still put them. Yeah, you have to, right? There's no doubt about that for sure. What I don't like the fact is they found the loophole, as much as you want to say it, if the G5 earns their spot to be there, like Cincinnati did years ago, if they deserve to be there, fine. Even if it turns out to be a blowout, because we have FBS blowouts, right? We've had that in the past as well. But if Cincinnati, like they did years ago, deserves to get in a spot, then they deserve a spot, period. Doesn't matter the way that the rest of the dominoes fall. If James Madison was ranked higher than Notre Dame in the college football playoff bracket and they had the legit resume, nobody would say, well, it's because they're a G5 team. No, because they were ranked higher. So I completely agree with this one. You have to only go at one team. You have to only go at one G5 team until things change. And these other G5 teams, G6 teams, whatever you want to say, they have to protect themselves in this new world of NIL and transfer portal. With this wild, wild west that's happening right now, they have to find a way. You're seeing it with coaching. Why don't you do it with players? Hey, come here, start right away, and we want you to transfer. We want you to be let's be the stepping stone. But here's the thing. If you transfer, in your contract, there's a buyout clause. The team that brings you over has to pay us a certain amount of NIL dollars so we can go get the next guy. You have to find a way to be creative if you're the G5. Because if you're only going to get guaranteed one playoff spot, then you have to focus on trying to get an at-large bid as well. You have to try and focus on doing that. You can't focus on being just one team that says, well, let's just hope. Let's just hope that we are the best team in all of the G5. Not only do we have to win our conference, but we have to win our conference good enough that the other four conferences are below us. That's not a good strategy. You have to find a way to be an at-large bid as well. I mean, look at San Diego State for the longest time until they lost to Hawaii at the end of the season. We fought with James Madison. If it wasn't for Duke winning the ACC championship game, if Virginia won, James Madison wouldn't have been there in the first place. And that's a completely different can of worms. And I asked this question on social media. What would happen if James Madison had the schedule of, let's say, Duke? Does James Madison have a 7-5 record just like Duke did, or is it worse? And I got a couple comments. Most people pointed in the direction saying, no, Duke's roster was better. Although they were 7-5, Duke would have had, or James Madison wouldn't have had as much of a record as Duke did. Do you believe that?
Well, you asked that question, and in my mind immediately goes to the massive conversation we're not talking about as much today, but how would Texas A&M have done in the ACC, considering they only played basically the bottom half of the SEC? Like, we can do this conference to conference. How would, BYU have done in the Big Ten at 11-1? How would Texas Tech have done in the Big Ten? I think it's a tough question to answer, right? Like, it's really hard to tell. Obviously, talent you can see a little bit, but also the matchups, like the style, like we saw in Western Michigan versus Kennesaw State, a team that's really, really good at running the ball and a team that's kind of not very good at stopping the run. And I think in situations like that, you can open up a game that ends up becoming a total blowout. I have one more question for you here while we're talking about this, because it's been something that's really come up a lot. Is Oregon in the best possible spot for this playoff at number 5, that 5 seed? Because they don't play in the Big Ten championship, so they aren't affected by that game. They can't go up or down, which winning the game doesn't move you up. So they stay at 5. They get a bye week. And then they come in and they play James Madison in basically a warm-up game for them. Like, this was the perfect spot to be in the bracket. And I don't love that it feels like so perfect that, like, what else? There's no other spot you'd rather have.
Yeah, the 5 seed seems like a cheat code in this new bracket right now, because the G5 team most likely, even if it's one in this new seeding period, if you win your conference, you don't get the bias period. The G5 team is most likely going to be the 12 seed. So your first round game is, dare I say, feels like a buy-in game, because that's kind of what it feels like. And then based on how the committee views the top 4 seeds, you're getting the worst of those 4 seeds. Now, I don't think Texas Tech is the worst of the 4 seeds remaining. I'll be completely honest. I think that they're better than Georgia. I do. I personally think they're better than Georgia. And I think Oregon and Texas Tech is going to be an amazing game. I think that's probably the best game we get in the second weekend for the college football playoffs, New Year's Eve, New Year's Day. But overall, if you're looking at it, yeah, the 5 seed is the sweet spot. No doubt about that. You would assume Oregon has the easiest path to the college football playoffs, to the national championship game. Now, you eventually have to beat the number 1 seed just to get to the Natty because you are the 5 seed and that's on your side of the bracket. But no team is going to shy away from that. If you're in the college football playoffs, you want to beat the best teams. You don't want the easiest run anyways, unless you're a G5 team and you're just there to try to get some money, right? And that's the cool thing about it this year. I will say that. Say all the negative things you want about the G5s making the playoffs. 2 of them made the playoffs this year. That means 2 of them got the $1 million, got the things that were needed to be done to give to these other schools, and hopefully that can help them get even better. So next year when they change it up, this offseason, it's going to change. Yes. Maybe one of these teams will be in the conversation for an at-large bid. I'm not holding my breath, but maybe that's the case as well. We might have some more college football talk in the future on this episode. We'll get to it. We'll circle back if that's the case. But let's talk about NFL real quick. Let's go Sunday night football, and let's dig into your New England Patriots. I mean, what an insane game. Every single primetime game from Thursday to Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I mean, Monday Night Football, Colts, 49ers, you better step up, man. It better happen today. But the Patriots come back, take down the Baltimore Ravens. They clinch a playoff spot. They are in full control of winning the AFC East if they win next week. Take me through this. Obviously, as a Patriots fan, you were probably on cloud 9 last night.
Yeah, it was incredible. And just to touch on what you were talking about, we have been on a crazy run of games between Thursday Night Football with the Seahawks and the Rams and Bama, and honestly, even it wasn't a high scoring game, but Texas A&M and Miami, and then you had some basketball games in there. Like this whole the last 4 days or so of sports has been on a generational run, and the Patriots did deliver against the Ravens, down 10 late in this game. I'll say really quick, for this personally, I did not ever feel that scared. Like they were down 10 and I didn't really sweat. Like I obviously knew, but there was over 11 minutes left in the game. Like there was still very much time for 2 possessions. I wasn't going to freak out too early. 28-24 final, and Drake May gets his first 300-yard passing game of the season. There's a lot to be excited about if you're a New England fan. I believe this was the biggest fourth quarter comeback since the Super Bowl win over the Falcons. This is obviously the first time in the playoffs since 2021. It feels like a new era. It feels like Mike Vrabel's got something cooking here. Drake May might not be Tom Brady yet. Okay, that's fine. He's got a little, give him a little bit of wiggle room here. This is not year 20, but he still looks very, very good for his amount of time he's been in the NFL. Now, this Baltimore team, we will get to that, okay? I have some points I want to make on the Baltimore side, but New England found a way to win this game, and I think all Patriots fans should be elated with this.
Yeah, you're talking about obviously how it's not year 20 for Drake May. Well, he's competing against somebody that's year 18, and that's Matt Stafford. For the entire weekend heading into last night's game, I thought Matt Stafford completely just solidified the fact that he was the MVP. After the game, even the loss against the Seahawks, I'm like, yeah, he's going to be MVP. But then enters Drake May, and you put out a tweet last night, and I thought you hit it perfectly. You said, I thought Stafford for sure wrapped up the MVP combo this week. But what Drake May did in the fourth quarter tonight has me thinking it might not be a complete runaway. I mean, Drake May last night, 31 for 44, 380, 2 touchdowns and a pick. He did that with Stephon Diggs, sneaking out of the concussion room, finding himself with 9 receptions for 138. There was a really good game from Drake May. He put himself right back in consideration for MVP. Do you think he legit has a chance to run with Stafford and get this one and find himself as an MVP candidate and the MVP this season? Do you think that's possible?
I do. And I think it's because this game came at this time. If he would have had this game next week, I don't know that it would have been enough, just the way the human brains work. And I don't know if he hadn't won this game, even though he would have thrown for, let's say 310 yards, cracks that 300 mark, like it wasn't a 450 yard, 3 touchdown, no pick day, even though Matt Stafford lost. It was just a significantly better stat day. Matt Stafford was slinging the ball. Like he is balling out. I'm not taking anything away from Matthew Stafford, but Drake May in this one felt like it was like just a super cool, calm, collected. The 380 was a byproduct. The Patriots just found a way to win this game, and Drake May ended up coming back from down 10 in the fourth, did what he had to do, protected the ball, 380 yards. Like it really felt like he was in control, and he was the MVP of this game. Obviously, running backs played a big role in this one as well. 79 yards on the ground came at some very important times. But I think more than anything, more than the stats, it was the timing of this game. And obviously the result helps too. But I don't think Matt Stafford got up to a point as far as like on a scale, right? Matt Stafford didn't jump to a point where Drake can't keep up. I think he's right there with him, and it's going to matter the rest of the season how things play out.
New England has Miami and the Jets still left on their schedule. They have a really good chance of finishing 14-3. They have a really good chance of potentially being the number 1 seed in the AFC playoffs if everything works out their way. Obviously, Denver losing to Jacksonville helps that process. We'll see how it all shakes out when it's all said and done. On the flip side, with Baltimore, Lamar Jackson got hurt. He left this game with a back injury, only had 101 yards. Derrick Henry had 128 yards rushing, and then he was not in on the final drive. When they asked John Harbaugh, he kind of just said, was kind of dumbfounded. He's like, yeah, we rotate between him and Keaton Mitchell. Like, what a terrible thing to say if you're the head coach and your season is on the line. And the only thing you can say is, yeah, well, with our best player, especially with our other best player out with an injury, we just rotate him with another running back. Keaton Mitchell had 9 carries for 13 yards, meaning he averaged just over 1 yard per carry last night. Derrick Henry had 18 carries for 128 yards, 2 touchdowns. When he touched the football, he basically scored. I mean, every time. His last time he touched the football, he had his second touchdown, and then he just wasn't in that game. That was a completely irresponsible move by Harbaugh, not making sure Derrick Henry is in for the final drive. Would you agree?
That's the point I wanted to bring up. The Lamar situation, like nobody ever wishes for injuries, but sometimes they happen. And so, I will at least take a look at that and say like, yeah, that's not necessarily fair. Like the Patriots got a little bit of a break there with no Lamar. But at least that was like uncontrollable. And you said the last drive, Derrick Henry wasn't in either of the last 2 drives. Now the last drive being only 2 plays, a quick fumble, maybe he would have gotten put in earlier, but it felt to me genuinely once the Patriots were in this game, once they were back in this one 21-24, and there was a real, like with the amount of clock left, I believe there was, that's the time of possession. I have no idea how much was left on the clock, but once they were in the game, it was possible for them to win. Baltimore was like, all right, mail it in. We're done. We're not going to compete because it was so. If Derrick Henry's not in, what are you doing? Like Tyler Huntley's great. Is he going to send them to the playoffs? Like, is he going to drive them down an 89-yard, 2-minute drill drive to win this game? Maybe. But I wasn't super confident, and I was much more trusting of Derrick Henry, and he was just standing over there on the sideline. Him and Lamar hanging out. I'm not going to say that they threw away the rest of their season, but that was a weird decision to me.
If Baltimore misses the playoffs, I'm just going to say one thing. The Michigan job's open. That's what I'm going to say. That's how I'm going to leave that one there. Yeah. Harbaugh did good at Michigan a few years ago.
Yeah.
I think there is a chance that if Baltimore misses the playoffs, although that Harbaugh just got an extension, there's been talks about internal issues between Lamar Jackson and Harbaugh in the past and other things happening. We've heard these rumblings happening in the past. And obviously, who knows if Lamar Jackson is still the future for Baltimore because of the fact that he can't stay healthy anymore. And you saw this coming from a mile away, right? Because he's a dual threat quarterback, uses his legs. We don't value the running back position because of that, right? Mm-hmm. He's not 25 anymore, and he's not acting like he's not 25. That's an issue. So when you look at the Ravens, Obviously, they don't control their destiny anymore. The Steelers won in their game against the Lions on Sunday. Now the Ravens have to win out. They have to hope that the Steelers get one loss. They do play each other to end the season. I don't feel good about the Baltimore's chances because they have a tough schedule the rest of the route. I think the Steelers are going to wind up winning the AFC North. Mike Tomlin finding a way to do it again. Insane stuff. But we're going to see the Baltimore Ravens out of the playoffs. We're not going to have Patrick Mahomes. We're not going to have Joe Burrow. We're not going to have Lamar Jackson. This is truly a new-looking AFC playoffs with the exception of what? Josh Allen. But yeah, with the exception, that's it.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing with like the Chiefs and the Ravens and the Bengals too is like I don't think this is some one-off weird year. Like the future doesn't look that bright for a lot of those teams. Like we talked a little bit about the Chiefs. Like what are they doing? Where's Travis Kelce at? I mean, Andy Reid's getting older. What is the rate? The bigger question with the Ravens is just what are you doing? Like, I don't know what they're actually trying to accomplish. It feels like I've actually been uncertain on what they've been trying to do for a while, but moving forward, that's not a super clean picture either. So it feels like it could be a time of new beginnings in the AFC. And we've got some other AFC teams we'll probably get to today, namely the Broncos and the Jags. Could it be Broncos, Jags, Patriots that are kind of controlling the AFC for the next few years? Actually,
Wow.
yeah, I think it could.
Yeah, we'll get to the NFL conversation in just a minute. There is plenty more to talk about on the NFL side. We talked a little bit more college football earlier, but we're going to circle back and talk some college football because not just Alabama and not just Oklahoma, not just the G5 debate is something that needs to be talked about. Honestly, what was the most fun for me this weekend was watching the FCS playoffs. And I got somebody to help me have this conversation, and I'm going to bring him on, Nick. And Zach McKinnell, senior editor and owner of FCS Football Central on Sports Illustrated. He's also part of Hero Sports. Zach, man, I'm so excited to talk to you. We've talked in the past before, plenty of stuff to talk about. Huge weekend for FCS playoffs. Obviously, it was an insane time. And if you don't watch FCS playoffs, I mean, you're missing out. Montana State, Montana. I mean, just the early segment, like the trailer, the teaser heading into that game, I had chills. The rivalry is absolutely insane. And then the underdogs of Illinois States. Take me through your weekend. I have somebody who covers FCS closely, maybe more than anybody I know, about this crazy weekend for the FCS playoffs.
Yeah, man. Well, for one, I appreciate y'all having me on the show, man. And yeah, I mean, listen, this weekend was kind of unprecedented in a way because it is historic as the rivalry between Montana State. The brawl is it's actually the first time these two teams have ever played in the postseason.
Wow.
And not only that, I mean, you have it where it's for a chance to go win a national title, and those two teams kind of get grouped in with the North Dakota States of the world at the FCS level. But Montana hasn't won a national title since 2001, and Montana State hasn't won a national title since 1984. So it's not the same as like a North Dakota State, right? Where they've won 10 of the last 14 national titles at the FCS level. So and this thing meant a lot. They brought in extra seating, and I think they had almost 26K at that game, and that's with all the snowstorms in Montana. I mean, this is the equivalent of Auburn, Alabama playing for a chance to go to the national title for the second time in a season at Bryant Denny or at Jordan Hare, or Oklahoma, Texas playing with a chance to go to the national title. Like that's the level of rivalry this is in terms of on the FCS scale is probably the most historic rivalry, probably one of the more passionate rivalries. And guys, they moved high school basketball games because the players and coaches didn't want to play during the game. So they were moving high school events to accommodate this game. And I think you saw the passion from the fans, and like you said, man, I think on social media people really bought into the whole atmosphere and what was going on. Then on the other side, you have Illinois State, who, just to put into perspective, they lost their last game of the regular season by 30 points at home to a team that didn't make the playoffs in Southern Illinois. They were one of the last four teams in. They were unseeded. They go and beat Southeastern Louisiana, who coming into the playoffs only had one FCS loss. Their other two losses were to, I think, LSU and like Louisiana Tech or something like that. So like 10-1 against the FCS. They beat them 21-3. Then they go to North Dakota State, a team they already lost to early in the year at home. Their quarterback throws 5 interceptions They allow a special teams touchdown, a pick six, and they're down 14-0 within like the first 2 minutes of the game. And they find a way to win. They, instead of going for the tie, they score 15 points in the final like 2 or 3 minutes and go for two to secure the win to win that game in Fargo, where the Bison never lose in the postseason. Like I'm talking about ever lose in the postseason. And then they got to go across the country and go beat a top 8 seed UC Davis team on the road, and they beat them by double digits. And then they go back across the country back to Villanova in Pennsylvania and or Philly or whatever, and beat Villanova this weekend. And it was a dominant performance, 30-14. They had the ball for almost 40 minutes of the game, and they just ran the ball down Villanova's throat. And their defense really kind of bulked up when it needed to, and it's two unprecedented runs. And we now have a team that has been to one national title in Illinois State, but has never won one. They lost to North Dakota State in like 2014, and then you got Montana State, who's been 3 times now since 2021, lost to North Dakota State the last 2 times, and now they have a chance to win their first one since '84. Man, so the storylines are endless now for Nashville on January 5th.
Yeah, exciting stuff. I mean, it's absolutely incredible. The Montana State rivalry, I didn't truly know that it was that good. Like I knew there was a rivalry. I didn't know it was that intense until putting that game on. Because I'll be honest, I'm not like an FCS connoisseur, right? I'll put on a game every now and again because I'm excited to watch good football, and the FCS is always good football. I'm going to get your take on this in a minute, Zach. But I didn't know how good this rivalry was. When they showed the ticket sales, they were comparing like Alabama, Oklahoma's ticket sales to Montana State's game. It was the most expensive game of the weekend. The cheapest seat was like $650, Nick and Zach. I mean, absolutely insane. Brent Vegan, obviously a guy that was completely seen as a guy who could take over a head coaching job. There was talks maybe he was going to take over Oregon State. They even flew him out to Portland to have a conversation. One of the talks was that he wanted to finish the playoffs, and it looks like it's working in full tandem because he's going to be a national champion. I mean, take me through real quick before we move on. Take me through what was your thought process for Montana State? Which one's the biggest national champion contender? Is it Montana State? Should they be favored, or do you believe the unseeded Illinois State has a chance to do what no one has seen in how long?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fair to say that Montana State should be like the heavy favorite here. And it's not just because Illinois State's such an unprecedented run, but like you look at what Montana State's been building over the past few years. Like the past 2 years, what are they, 25-3, two Big Sky titles, back-to-back national title appearances. They lost to North Dakota State by 3 last year, had the Walter Payton winner. Man, they've just built like a remarkable program over there. I think Vegan's 60-12 since 2021 at Montana State. And if you remember, he was there for the North Dakota State dynasty. Like he knows what it takes. Like he played at North Dakota State in the late 90s, and he coached there from like 98 to 2013 before he went to Wyoming. So he knows what it's like to build a championship contender. And I've talked about, I think this program's been like right there on the precipice of something really special. And I think a lot of Montana State fans feel like this is their year. It's the first year they haven't run into North Dakota State. They're the top seed now. And it feels like it's all been building to this. But staring on the other side, there's that Missouri Valley team, because their other loss this year outside of Oregon was South Dakota State, another Missouri Valley team. So you're kind of staring a Missouri Valley team in the face. Like the Missouri Valley's had 17 teams be represented in the national title game since 2011, guys. That means they've had multiple years where 2 Valley teams have went to the national championship and faced off against each other, including back-to-back years with North Dakota and South Dakota State. But you look at what this Montana State team is. They run the football well. They're good in the trenches. And the quarterback there with Justin Lanson was a guy they got from Stanford, who was a guy that Stanford more utilizes like a wildcat quarterback, red zone quarterback. I think he broke John Elway's single season rushing touchdown record at Stanford. But, man, he's been such an effective, efficient passer, man, in this Montana State offense. And he's continuously taken steps forward. His emergence in big games is really what makes this team special. And he had to replace a legend, guys. Like the last quarterback in Montana State was Tommy Mellott. He was the Walter Payton Award winner, which is the FCS Heisman last year. He's a Montana kid, who spent his whole career at Montana State, led that program to two national titles, two national title appearances. He's probably one of the greatest players to ever play for Montana State. And you bring in Justin Lampson, a journeyman at the FBS level, and it's like, hey, now I need you to replace this legend here at quarterback, and we have national title expectations. And all Lampson's done is just that. I think he has almost 40 plus total touchdowns, almost 3,000 yards passing, only 3 interceptions. He's been deadly accurate and efficient. But then on the other side, guys, they had to replace, I think, like 9 starters defensively. And their defense this year happened to be better than last year. And a lot of it stems from, I remember talking in the preseason, they blew everybody out last year. I just want to offer some perspective. They were the number 1 overall seed last year because North Dakota State got beat at the last week of the regular season by South Dakota. As they went 15-1 last year with like an FBS win over New Mexico or New Mexico State. And they were blowing everyone out so much. They played all these young guys, all these true freshmen and true sophomores. Well, when they had to replace 9 starters on defense, as they had like 20 guys that played 200 plus snaps last year. So all those guys weren't green and as much inexperience as people gave them. As they start 2 freshmen at corner, a freshman safety, a sophomore safety, and then they have a junior nickelback who's been hurt his whole career, in Caden Dowler, who was the Big Sky Defensive Player of the Year. It's just remarkable looking at how good this defense is, and they're so young. If Montana State can retain talent like they did Vegan against all the coaching rumors, this team might be better next year than this year. This year was kind of looked at as potentially a step back year, and last year was viewed as the team that should have won the national title. For them to be better than last year's unbelievable coaching job by Vegan, who lost again some of his coordinators. He's lost coordinators every year, and they continue to find ways to be elite on both sides of the ball. It's remarkable the program he's built in Bozeman up there.
Yeah, both Montana State and Illinois State obviously have had just a phenomenal year. And I think no matter what happens in this final, this is maybe one of the best FCS kind of brackets, postseasons we've seen in a long time. Just, I think personally for me, the Illinois State run is unbelievable. So maybe this question isn't exactly fair with the postseason the FCS has had, but the big, the big Power Four, the big boys in the room, haven't exactly figured out the playoffs, in my opinion. Is the FCS playoffs better than the Power Four, 12-team playoff? Because there's so much noise around, should the G5 get in? They're getting blown out by Oregon. Like, Illinois State's still making it to the championship here, but at least the system seems to make sense.
Yeah, okay. So there's 2 sides of this coin, and I'm a little bit torn on where I fall on it because listen, there's the one side of it is there's always blowouts.
Sure. Right.
Tennessee got beat by 40 last year in the first round, but does that mean the SEC?
No, that's because they weren't wearing shirts in the warm up. If they put their shirts on, it would have been a different game.
That's the easiest betting tip of all time. If you see a team run out with no shirts in the cold, put all the money on whatever the spread is for the other team.
Agreed.
It's the dumbest thing of all time. I think it happened in the playoffs this year, and the team got beat by 40 in South Dakota State. I think New Hampshire did it, and I'm like, okay, well, that's an easy pick there. But I do think that blowouts are always going to happen in the first round. Blowouts happen in the FCS playoffs. Like South Dakota State beat New Hampshire, I think 40-3 in the first round. This time, South Dakota blew out their first round matchup, and there's blowouts in the second round. I mean, because South Dakota State beats New Hampshire 40-3, and then they go get beat 50-20 something by Montana the next round. Sometimes there's just really good teams that just blow other teams out. Like you look back now, that Tennessee blowout doesn't look as crazy now that Ohio State went and won the national title last year. So I just think people need to put it on the perspective. Even if you take the G5 teams out, if you put Duke in there, if you put Notre Dame in there, Vandy in there, are you saying that none of those teams could be blown out? I'm pretty sure Vandy didn't perform very well against Alabama earlier this year in Bryan, didn't he? If I remember right. So I think any of those teams, and then Tulane beat Duke. So if you're arguing Tulane shouldn't be in, then why are we putting Duke in? Duke's like an 8-win team. Who wants to see that go up to Oregon if that was the case? I'd rather give a James Madison a chance than a 7 or 8-win Duke team. But then on the flip side too, the disparity between the top teams at the FBS level and the middle of the pack teams is so much greater than at the FCS level. You have your North Dakota States and your non-scholarship schools in the Pioneer, but those schools aren't competing for a national title the same way. Like the Pioneer gets one team in, but is usually knocked out in the first round because they're a non-scholarship school. But the rest of the FCS playoffs, like the difference between a North Dakota State and an Illinois State is not as great as a difference between an Alabama and a James Madison, if that makes sense. And so that's where I think you run into like that James Madison team is closer to spending and infrastructure closer to a North Dakota State than it is in Alabama, and it will be like that forever. There's no way to close the gap in that spending disparity and that funding disparity and the resource battle that it takes to really compete at that national level. So I've always been an advocate. Like the G5 playoff thing, I don't think is realistic because if you're going to do that, what like all these teams moved up for no reason then might as well just move back down to the FCS and join the FCS playoffs again because that's what it's going to be if you create a G5 playoff. They're never going to go for that. If they get locked out, what's probably going to happen is you would see some sort of G5 FCS merger, and the teams that couldn't compete at that level would probably drop back down to D2. Or we have a third subdivision, which would be one AA D2. Like it would pretty much be the new D2.
Gotcha.
Yeah, like you can't put a letter between B and C, so like it's not FBS, FCS. I was trying to figure that out too. Like what is the next step for this one? And what I said earlier is that if the G5 is completely ruled out, then maybe those FBS schools shouldn't schedule them either. If they're not okay with having them in their playoffs, you shouldn't have them in the regular season as well. Zach McKinnell, really excited to have you on the show. Before I let you go, you got a prediction? Who wins, Illinois State or Montana State? Which one you got?
Man, it's 2 weeks away, but just my gut instinct right now, I would lean Montana State. I would say take the points, but I think the spread's kind of ballooned to 10 now for Montana State. That's a lot of points for a really, really scrappy Illinois State team that's proven they can compete with the top teams. I would take the points there if I was a betting guy, but I would say Montana State finds a way to get their first national title since the 80s.
Oh, man, exciting stuff. Senior editor and owner of FCS Football Central on SI, Zach McKinnell, appreciate you for joining the show, my guy.
Hey, appreciate you guys, man.
Awesome. Man, I mean, honestly, that was probably the most logical answer I've heard from trying to compare the FCS playoffs and FBS playoffs. I mean, it was incredible. That was perfect. He makes me want to go through a wall talking about FCS teams. I mean, that's truly that's like the old school way of college football. If you're frustrated about the Alabamas or the Notre Dame's not making it in, and you're not paying attention to Montana and Montana State, then I think that's a big issue right there. Like you have a complete direction. You have a complete way of fulfilling your therapy. Just watch FCS.
Yes. Yeah. Well, both of us had it on. Both of us were like, hey, if we're like, we should probably like, this is a good game. Let's actually watch this. And obviously all of the lead up in the rivalry aspect between Montana State, first time meeting in the playoffs, like all of that had made its way onto my feed. I was like, yeah, I think I'm going to go ahead and pop this on, see how it goes. And very much worth it. And so the FCS versus FBS playoffs right now is a conversation in and of itself, but the play at the FCS level is not just like, okay, well, they're out there playing patty cake and the tournament's good. Like they're out there playing good football out there too. And I enjoyed watching that game. There was, I would say it was more enjoyable than probably the JMU game. I don't know. The Tulane game kind of had some ebbs and flows. I feel like a little bit more. Never really felt close in the Oregon game. But nonetheless, those FCS games, like, don't sleep on them, man. They are legit football players down at the FCS level.
Let's wrap up today's show. Let's go back to the NFL and let's talk about another great game that happened over the weekend. I mean, we're talking about complete crazy primetime games over and over again. We had Thursday night, we had the Seahawks Rams. Friday night, we had Bama Oklahoma. Well, Saturday night, we had the Chicago Bears taking down the Green Bay Packers. And this might ask you the question. Has Caleb Williams finally arrived? I mean, has it finally happened? He threw probably the most perfect pass I have seen him throw, maybe any other quarterback throw this entire season, to DJ Moore in overtime to take the Packers down. The Bears clinch a playoff spot and are in full run for winning the NFC North in year one of Ben Johnson. 22-16 final and overtime. Caleb Williams goes for 250 yards, 2 touchdowns, 19 for 34. And he did it basically all. I mean, the defense was great too. Chicago's defense was great, but Caleb Williams did it. It was impressive. Has he arrived? I mean, has it finally been now it's time to say that the number 1 overall pick from a few years ago was finally here?
I mean, he did enough to certainly make some noise in this one. You mentioned that final throw to DJ Moore right in the
Insane.
bucket. It
Yeah,
was
perfect.
exactly where that ball needed to be. And phenomenal job by Moore holding on to that ball too, making the football move of rolling through the end zone. That was a sweet final play in that game. And to ask if Caleb Williams has arrived, I mean, I would say yes, but to the doubters out there, if nothing else, he's bought time. Like, I think it's pretty clear now that he can have a few down games because he's shown what he's capable of at the NFL level. That's how I look at it. I don't think, even Drake May has had some moments. I feel like in the loss against the Bills, there were some moments where he probably could have thrown a better ball or hit a different target. Like, these guys that are new to the league, they're not going to be perfect down in and down out. And Drake May, we just talked about today. The reason I bring him up, not because I'm a Patriots fan, is because he's number 2 in MVP conversations, man. He's not some random dude who just started playing football and I brought up. He's literally like going to potentially win the MVP. So comparing, Caleb Williams to a potential MVP candidate, I am drawing the age comparison there, not necessarily the play. But I am saying that even the top of the top, especially these young guys, have lapses where they don't necessarily make the right read, or the throw's a little bit inside, or maybe it was a little low or too much of a float on that ball or whatever. They're still learning the NFL game. But this game, to me, it was a huge stepping stone for Caleb. And I do think on some level he has arrived.
Yeah, sometimes the numbers don't say everything. And sometimes it's just the actions and sometimes it's just the results that can make you say that he's arrived, because I think he has. But if you look at his numbers compared to last year's, they're nothing crazy. And in some cases, they're worse. He has a 57.8 completion percentage compared to 62.5 last year. He's only thrown for 3,400 yards compared to 35 last year, but he's still got a couple games left. He's going to surpass that. He's already got 6 interceptions, the same as he did last year. Now he has thrown for 3 more touchdowns. The more incredible thing here, and this is something that is the most important thing, that Ben Johnson himself has helped get Caleb Williams to where it's at. We've talked about this in the past. We've talked about it offline with EPA, and we've talked about it with advanced metrics. Interceptions, yards, completion percentage don't really matter as much as long as you're moving the football. Caleb Williams has been sacked 45 less times than last season. He was sacked 68 times last year. He's only been sacked 23 times. That alone is helping Chicago be a much better football team, a much better offense, and they put a lot of work in the trenches this offseason. That's one thing that Ben Johnson really focused on. They brought in some weapons. Sure, Caleb Williams, they had what it needs to take, but this is exactly how you protect your franchise quarterback, and this is how you compete in arguably the toughest division, not by what I mean toughest is in performance, but the legit toughest, like the most brutal division in NFL and the NFC North. You have to do that in the trenches, and they just proved right there. 68 sacks in 2024, only 23 so far this season.
Yeah, that's a huge statistic. For those who aren't super aware, we've talked about this, but like a sack is somehow worse for your team than an interception. Like, basically, that's how brutal sacks are across the board. Yeah, maybe not in every situation necessarily, but definitely I believe it's statistically averaged out. Like, you really don't want to be taking sacks. It really is not a good situation to find yourself in. So that is a enormous stat for the Bears. And you mentioned like the hard-nosed football of the NFC North. It's one of my favorite features about that division. It's a very unique style, almost Big Ten style of football. And it's a super fun watch. But Ben Johnson and the kind of offensive, kind of guru he is and what he's done for these Bears can't go understated either. Obviously, we are actively talking about it, but I just want to touch on it again because, Caleb Williams is great and they've got some weapons and all of that. But the Bears for so long have just been inept at the head coaching position. Like, they just haven't had what it takes to be completely honest. It's a challenging position to be in. I understand that. I would be a terrible NFL head coach. Please don't give me that job. Okay. But they haven't had somebody who can do it. And it looks like Ben Johnson is doing well so far, right? We'll see how that kind of plays out over the next few years. But the Bears might have got a guy here, a guy that can continue to bring them success, even if they don't have an A+ game from their Caleb Williams quarterback, or whoever, maybe their running back or their defensive line, like whoever they're kind of leaning on. Even if they don't show up, I think Ben Johnson's able to manipulate this team and put it in a position to at least attempt to win a lot of games.
Let's take a look at the NFC playoff picture. A lot of green now. First time we've seen some green. A lot of teams clinching the playoffs. Seattle, Chicago, Philly, LA, and San Francisco. Look at that. 3 teams in the NFC West already clinching playoff spots. Really, the only thing left is what happens in the NFC South and then who wins that final wild card spot. I don't think it's possible now that Chicago's got to win that Detroit can win the division. Detroit can, I think, can just find a way to sneak out Green Bay. So, of course, Chicago has clinched themselves a playoff spot, have not clinched the division yet. The only team that is can clinch the division who has already done that is the Philadelphia Eagles for the NFC East. On the flip side, the Green Bay Packers, Jordan Love, concussion. That's been ruled a concussion. They have a game on Saturday, a short week, if you will. Now, it was a Saturday to Saturday, so maybe it's not a short week because they did play on Saturday against the Baltimore Ravens, who also has an injured quarterback in Lamar Jackson. So we're seeing some unfortunate games coming up in the season. We're seeing the Kansas City Chiefs taking on a game on Christmas Day with potentially a third-string quarterback and maybe somebody off the streets. And then in this one, we're seeing the Green Bay Packers with Jordan Love, who most likely won't be playing if you're having a concussion right now. Probably not going to be ready for Saturday. And then who knows what happens with Baltimore with Lamar Jackson. But Green Bay right now already lost Micah Parsons to an ACL injury. You have Jordan Love. Now, Malik Willis stepped up in this game. I thought he didn't look terrible for a backup quarterback. If there's any backup right now, I think he's been the one that's proved the most so far this season to help them still sneak into the playoffs. They're currently 9-5-1. I think we can find them in the playoffs this year.
Absolutely. It's a very exciting kind of picture that we're looking at, and the NFC being down basically to that last wild card spot is so electric. As we move into the AFC is a totally different game, and that's its own thing. But on the NFC side, it'll be interesting to see who snags that final piece, that final spot. But I know everybody, and I mean everybody, is just dying to see who is going to win the NFC South. That's what everybody wants to know. Which barely positive 500 team is going to be in the playoffs this year?
I mean, the Carolina-Tampa game wasn't bad. It wasn't bad, and it's going to come down to that again in the final week of the season. So at least we have that kind of drama. But yeah, if you're pissed off about college football playoffs, maybe you should direct your attention, your frustration to the fact that the NFC South is going to have a 4 seed. And while the NFC West both has 3 teams with better records, maybe that's where you should direct your frustration. Let's wrap up this show and talk about the AFC playoff picture side as well. We kind of already showed this graphic, but we should talk about it a little bit more. Denver, New England, Jacksonville, Pittsburgh hold the division spots right now. Chargers, Bills, Texans holding the wild cards. Indy plays tonight against San Francisco. If they lose, I think they're done. I think they're completely out of it. And then Baltimore still has a chance, but Pittsburgh owns their own destiny. Let's talk Denver, Jacksonville. That game, Jacksonville won that football game, took down Denver. I hate to say that I feel right about this, but I've been saying it for a while since we've been on the show. I don't feel confident in the Denver Broncos. Those 11 games winning streak, yeah, it was great. Don't get me wrong. That's super impressive, especially in this world of the NFL. But Jacksonville either just looked like a completely better team, or Denver is exactly what we thought Denver was. At least I thought Denver was. And it just an overperforming, getting lucky their record is so good team. I just not impressed with Denver.
So, and this is a classic case, right, of a team that's been so good, losing by a lot. Is it the problem being that the team we thought was so good maybe isn't so good, or are the Jags actually legit? Sounds like you're kind of on the camp or on the side of the Broncos aren't as good as we potentially thought.
I think both. I think the Jaguars are better, but I think I am leaning more towards the side of I don't believe in this Denver Broncos team.
I saw a stat they threw up on the broadcast. Unfortunately, I don't have it in front of me. It was something along the lines of they have as many one-score wins as the Chiefs did last season. And look, the Chiefs, that we all know what happened there, right? And so I lean more towards the Jags myself. I think this is a Jags team that's legit. The Broncos probably just had an off day. That's kind of how I look at this. But I think this Jags team is very good. I think Trevor Lawrence, you want to talk about, has arrived. Kind of feel like it's a long time coming for Trevor Lawrence. And I remember when I was in high school, him being in high school as well and deciding to go to Clemson and the number one recruit of all, like, I was amazed that I was like, wait, they're talking about high schoolers like this? Am I not the same age as this guy? Why am I not on Huddle, like, main feed? This seems a little bit unfair, but obviously he plays in the NFL and I'm not. I'm just talking about it. So I lean more towards look out for the Jags in this playoffs. Like, the Broncos, decent. They're going to be a team. Don't want to play Denver necessarily, obviously, especially if you have to go to Mile High. But I was happy to see them lose for the Patriots in the 1 seed situation, but also the Jags. Like, I think we got a better picture on who the Jags are in this more than anything else.
Yeah, and they're doing it without Travis Hunter. Jacoby Myers really proving to be a huge piece of his contract extension. Trevor Lawrence, I think we finally solved the problem that he's no longer on the hot seat of being a franchise quarterback. He's the dude. And, I mean, they're doing it all at first-year coach as well. We talk about how amazing it is that the Bears are doing it. Look at what Cohen's doing in year 1 with the Jaguars. And that's so weird. I mean, incredible, though. But certainly incredible. I think you could even make the point that it's more impressive that he's doing it with Jacksonville than Ben Johnson's doing with the Bears.
Oh, yeah,
I think you can make that point, and that's fair. You talked about that Denver Broncos thing while you were talking. I looked it up. I did the math. They've played, obviously, 15 games so far this season. They're 12-3. Of those 15 games, 11 of the games are one-score games. They're 9-2 in those one-score games.
Wow.
So all 7 points or less.
That's like with the Vikings, a few years ago.
That's worse than the Chiefs last year.
Really? That's crazy. Yeah, so it must have been most sense, as was the stat was. I have a hard time getting behind those really constantly getting away with close wins teams. There's always the argument, and I do use this argument from time to time, that they found a way to win in close games. They just have the coaching. They have the clutch gene, if you will, their ability to convert and to really deliver on final drives. Like, that's a real thing. I'm not taking that away from teams who win in one-score games. But if you're constantly finding yourselves in one-score games as opposed to 70-20 blowouts, like, it's something to look at. It's something to remember. Denver's going to be a problem. Okay, I'm not saying they're not some team. They're going to be here. They're going to stick around, but they're not maybe as good as I think we thought they were.
When I look at this AFC playoff picture right now, everybody on the left and in the middle that are currently in the playoffs right now, every single team on there, I think, can beat the Denver Broncos.
Wow.
New England, Jacksonville, Pittsburgh, the Chargers, which we'll find out in a couple weeks. Chargers already beat the Broncos this year. The Bills and the Texans. I think every single one of those teams can beat the Denver Broncos. I mean, the Texans already lost to Denver 18-15. One-score game.
Wow.
But I think the Texans can do it. I really do. I'm just not impressed. And I don't think we're going to get any answers this week because they play the Chiefs on Christmas, but it's the Chiefs that are going to be playing their third-string quarterback. Who knows what's going to happen with the rest of that team? It's the Chiefs team that just lost to the Titans. We're not going to get any answers. The only answer we'll get is if the Chiefs win that football game, then there's a huge problem in Mile High. It's a mile-high problem.
Yes.
If the Chiefs win that football game.
That's kind of a lose-lose situation for Denver. If you win, we don't really learn a whole lot. We're not super high on you anymore. And if you lose, you can't lose that one. You cannot lose that one. Look at here. I just found it.
I'm sure when the schedule came out and you circled this one, because I thought Denver had the chance to be a dark horse candidate heading into the season. I truly did. Not like this, but I thought they were going to be a dark horse candidate where they actually were good. When you thought this game, okay, man, Chiefs, Broncos, Christmas Day, Mahomes, I mean, this could be fun. This game felt like it had a lot of juice. And then the finished game with the Chargers, now this game means absolutely nothing to me. I mean, this is a game that this one is on at nighttime. I wish this one was during the day when I was cooking and getting ready for Christmas, because this is a tough game, man. This is a tough game to watch. We had all these great primetime games last weekend. Christmas Day, we're going to probably have it. I mean, if it's 40-3, are you surprised? I wouldn't be surprised.
No, I wouldn't be too shocked. I just wanted to bring up here really quick because we mentioned like all the one-score games. Denver's 11th in offensive EPA per play and 9th in defensive EPA per play.
That's impressive.
In the top third of the NFL, definitely at least worth keeping an eye on that, because I feel like that's a better indicator than win or lose in these games. I'm excited to see what they can do the rest of the season. But yeah, I just wanted to really bring that up because I feel like, to me, it was an opportunity to take a look at the Jags. Like, I think the Broncos were looked at and the Patriots were looked at as these two teams. And yeah, like I said, the Broncos aren't going anywhere, but keep an eye on the Jags. They're not like the Blake Bortles, Jags that somehow found their way into the AFC Championship game in, what was that, 2016 or whatever? Like
2017, yeah.
Yeah, with Foles and Kirk Cousins at that Final Four. It doesn't feel like that. It feels like this could be a legitimate contender Jags team.
Yeah, going to be a wild week for sure. We're going to bring you all through episodes all through the week. I don't think we'll do one Christmas Day, but we'll have you covered the rest of the week here at Marv and Rauh in the morning. Got plenty to talk about. I mean, we only touched college football and NFL. I mean, there's some crazy MLB trades that happen. We still have plenty more to talk about with this NFL week because there are so many playoff scenarios. I mean, the fact we were writing the outline for this show, and there was so many. The hardest part is to try and get it down to the topics.
Down to
talk
6
in 1 hour. We could have had a 3-hour show today. No doubt about it.
Oh, easily.
Yeah. Insane. Let's get out of here. Let's see you back here tomorrow, right here on Marv and Rauh in the morning.